Hi everybody, I'm Greg Shimizi.
And I'm Julie Walker. Welcome to VVH's coverage of the 16th Annual Hamptons International Film Festival.
Well, we got an action-packed show, right Julie?
Absolutely. So much in store for you. Mr. Baldwin, thank you for joining us. So tell us, how have you been enjoying the festival?
I'm on my way to go do a Q&A for Bob Drew, who has his film here about JFK, President to Remember. And I narrated the film, and Bob is an old friend of mine. I did another film with him back in 1995 about the illegal importation of birds from the Amazon. And I've known Bob for about, 14 years. I met him in 94 or 93, somewhere along that line. And Bob, who's like one of the deans of verite filmmaking. He's one of the guys who, with Pennebaker and so forth, they first put the camera on their shoulder and had no narration. And I introduced the film, and I'm going to go back right now and do the Q&A for the film.
And when we think of Alec,
we hit the Nespresso bar here at the Palm. You got to touch all the bases here. Yeah, I got to wake up for the Q&A.
When we think
Nespresso.
When we think of Alec Baldwin, we think most recently of your TV show, and we think of your comedic acting, and we don't necessarily think of documentaries. But tell us about your involvement with that type of filmmaking.
Well, there's a program I had years ago that didn't last long because the station, the network, IFC Bravo, Bravo IFC back then, they didn't have a lot of money for original programming, so we used to joke and say that I did these 6 episodes and I exhausted the entire budget for original programming of IFC back then. And I did this program called Raw Footage, where I would interview documentary filmmakers who did not have a very vivid release of their films and distribution of their films. And it was great. And I got to meet some amazing people. And R.J. Cutler and David Van Taylor, who did Perfect Candidate about the Oliver North race against Chuck Robb in Virginia. Van Taylor had done the movie about Dream Deceivers, about the trial of the kids that tried to commit suicide because of the hidden messages and lyrics from Judas Priest, the Judas Priest trial in Nevada. And then R.J. Cutler was one of the people who produced War Room. And you just meet these people. There's a lot of cool films here. The documentary films are always stunning.
With me now is Jacqueline Bisset. She is in An Old-Fashioned Thanksgiving playing here at the festival, and she joins us here on WVVH-TV. Thank you so much for being here. It is such an honor to actually talk with you because everybody loves you. Everybody talks about you, and it's quite exciting. Your film, An Old-Fashioned Thanksgiving, it's based on a Louisa May Alcott short story. Let's talk a little bit about that movie.
Yes, well, this is a period piece. It's 3 generations of women. I play a rather difficult character. I play a woman whose daughter is very estranged from her, who she hasn't actually seen for 20 years. My daughter has 3 children. They're living in poverty, relative poverty. And I have the life of a rich woman. My daughter does not approve of the way I've got this money. Even though she was there and enjoyed some of the fruits of it, she doesn't understand me. And my granddaughter, played by Tatiana Maslany, is the eldest of the 3, and she is mystified by why her mother does not like her own mother. And she surreptitiously writes to her, doesn't really know where she lives or what her life is. She's heard that she's rich. She writes and asks for help because Thanksgiving is coming and they're very poor. They're so poor, in fact, that they can't have a Thanksgiving meal, and they make what I think is called a sampler. They draw pictures of their thing and they sew it. It's extremely touching because this is a film about very genuine things, and the children who play the 3 children are absolutely wonderful. And anyway, she writes to me, and I turn up, very surprised to be approached by my daughter, who I think hates me, but I don't realize it's not my daughter who's written to me, it's my granddaughter. And I have a real feeling for her. I get a strong feeling for her. She likes to write, and we connect. She's the kind of person who I was possibly when I was young. But my daughter doesn't like this sort of closening relationship coming and resists it. And it's a story about how I make a lot of mistakes. She's very pious, very religious, very helpful to the community and everything, and I'm sort of I just want them to have a better life. And my way of going about it is a little arrogant, because I think because I've got money I can buy things and do things. And they are so lacking in stuff that the kids, of course, just adore me eventually. They don't adore me in the beginning. And there's romantic stories, and there's community stories and things that are sort of interwoven. And Thanksgiving is the centerpiece, in that it brings this 3 generations of women together to some degree. Nothing's perfect, but we all make some progress.
You know, it's an interesting story because you said it's a period piece, but it's so up to date, and especially given everything that we're going through most recently with the economy. And when you were given this project and asked to take part in it, what went through your mind?
Well, I actually thought of my own family. I thought of my own family. I thought it's going to take place in a little cottage. I grew up in a little cottage, and when we were on the set of the film, it was very much like the little cottage that I grew up in. So I could really relate to it. I could relate to the uncomfortableness of it, because when I grew up, we didn't have any mod cons. It was cold, and we didn't have washing machines and dryers and television and any of those things. You know, it was really very much like life was in this movie. I can relate to it completely. I mean, I absolutely can relate to it, much more than I can in a way to the rich lady who comes. But I know her reasons were good, but she didn't carry it off completely.
You know, speaking of you growing up, we must say that even though your name sounds French, you grew up in England. Am I correct?
Yeah. My father was Scottish and my mother was half French.
And you have had just the most interesting career. You've done so many movies and you've been in so many films that are just amazing. I mean, you know, everyone, we had a picture of you up before from the Deep, and there's Casino Royale, and there were so many, you know, and then there were so many critically acclaimed movies. I mean,
I've done a lot of different types of films. I've tried not to bore myself and hopefully not bore anybody else. So I try and go from as far away as I can each time, and it's because it's an exploratory thing for me. I don't like repeating myself. I don't think most actors do. I think you need to stretch, and it's not always obvious to somebody else what it is in the story that makes me feel like I'm stretching.
You know,
there is on some level virtually always something.
You know, it sounds like great advice for anyone coming up in the business or anyone trying to find themselves in the business, no matter where they are. Do you have any other advice in terms of how you look at roles or how you perfect your craft?
Well, I think a very important thing is the voice. I didn't study acting formally, but I did study voice. And my voice when I started was excitable and high and squeaky, and it was not where I wanted it. It didn't necessarily represent me even at that time. Then I did quite a lot of exercises for my voice. My voice has come down to where it is, and then by itself it's gone into its own place, and it reflects me now. But I think your voice is for your life. I mean, forget acting, just for life. One's voice is your communicator. So that's where I would say study. That I would say, obviously, if you can learn to move and do movements and stuff, that's to be graceful. But you have to learn to be observant. You have to learn to listen, really listen. And when you listen really, you don't have to do anything. Your body will do it for you if you really listen. You really take in what the person's saying to you, just like in life, if you really listen, you know. It's energy creates another energy, and the other thing is, I believe actors need to be cultivated people. I think they need to read. I think they need to go to art museums, look at photographs, try and develop their visual eye. Just study as much as you can all the things that pertain to life, and that's an unending stream. That's the world. Read the paper. Know about current events, because then you represent your times, if you know what's going on. I mean, if you're living, obviously, in this film, I'm not representing my times, but I am representing the eternal female struggling with a family. So it's important to know it, and you know, your face starts to take on what you learn, and that's, if you fill yourself, your face becomes more interesting. And if you have an empty life, too many parties and too many bad relationships and everything, you just end up looking like an empty person, sad empty person, and that's not going to help you if you want to be an actor. That's what I know. We all have. I mean, obviously life is full of pain, but there are a lot of kids who get lost. They start taking drugs and alcohol, and they think it's cool. And you know, most people have done that for a short period of time, but unfortunately it doesn't work. Even if it's fun at the time, it just does not keep you in the running for jobs, and people want to work with people who are professional.
And you've worked with almost everyone in the business. I mean, you have longevity. I mean, you've kept up a wonderful career and a long career. Any films that you've worked on, any people that you've worked with that you can relate stories that
Oh, well, we'd need an awful lot of time. I've just did a Q&A about some of the people I worked with. I just recently worked with Dennis Hopper, which was a lot of fun. He's a very interesting guy and a great artist in art, and also a very good actor. This is a comedy I did called, it's called The Last Film Festival, so it's being edited now, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And it was broad for me, I play Italian. I play her very broad. I love playing Italian. I don't know what it is. Something happens to me when I'm Italian.
Speaking of film festivals, you attend a lot of film festivals. How does this one rank up there? I heard you were at the opening night party last night.
Actually, I wasn't at the opening night party. I went to bed because I'd just come from Turkey, and I just had a very long trip, and I was at a film festival in Turkey day before yesterday, so I went to bed. You saw me, somebody must have seen me walking past the party, but I didn't go.
Well, somebody also said they saw Angelina Jolie, and I knew that couldn't be true, so there we go. 2 sightings, you and Angelina at the party. But how do you like this film festival? How do you like being in the Hamptons?
I think the Hamptons is so beautiful. It's almost overwhelming. When I arrived yesterday, driving in the car, I didn't know which Hampton I was in, because I haven't got the names right, but I'm going like, this is like paradise. I mean, the sun was out, it wasn't too hot. Even the graveyard in the middle of a village looked magnificent. The rivers, the water, the trees, the shade, the light. It's a bit awesome, actually. It looks like a very privileged community for the most part. I think people must be quite happy to have a house here.
Oh, absolutely, but it's got a bit of everything. It's got a working class community, but what everybody knows of it is the life beyond the hedges, the very, as you said, privileged community, and that's what people say.
Behind the hedges, do tell me.
Well, I'm out here working, but they do everything other people do. They have kids, they go to school, they go to work. It's a community that's based on a lot of families. It's a tight-knit community. People know each other. You go to the post office in the morning and you run into people you know. You go get your coffee in the morning, you run into people you know. But it is a great place to be. It really is. And I spent a lot of my life growing up here, but just as much of my life growing up in New York City. But some of the fondest memories of my life are out here in Sag Harbor. It's a wonderful place, and I hope you get a chance to see more of it.
I don't think I'm going to get much, but today is the big day for me, for the film's opening tonight, and tomorrow I'm going to have a day off, and maybe I'm going to see a bit, and then maybe Saturday a little bit. But I have a feeling I'm going to be seeing some films at the film festival also. So I don't know, we'll see. You know, you go to wonderful places, and you don't always make the most of it, which is sad, but you can't do everything. I'm going to catch up with some friends. That makes me happy. And
anything you're going to see that you can tell us about? Anything that you're really looking forward to seeing? I don't know if you've gotten to look through the book.
I haven't seen the book, but I want to see the Frances McDormand is going to give a Q&A. I think it's tomorrow. I think it is, or maybe it's Friday. I'm not sure, but I'm hoping to see that. She's an actress I like a lot, and. The schedule for movies, we'll see. It'll depend on the press things I have to do.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. It was such a pleasure to talk with you. We're here at East Hampton Airport where Dominick Dunne just got off a helicopter from New York. Before that, he flew in from London. Now, you are the star of Dominick Dunne After the Party. How does it feel to be the star of that documentary?
Well, I love the documentary, and I didn't know what these wonderful Australians were going to be doing with me. They'd pop in and out of my life for the last 2 years and photograph me here, there, everywhere. And I thought, what are they, you know, they could be making fun of me. And, but I loved it, and it was worth taking this flight from England to get to here and to get off the plane, and my secretary is saying, you have to get to the heliport right away, and so forth. It's all worth it.
The film was phenomenal, and as you mentioned, the two Australians are the directors of the film, and they did a wonderful job of capturing your life like no other documentary has. How did it feel to open up so much?
Well, I tell you, I was so impressed with what they did, with I mean, how they got, I mean, I have a complicated life, and it didn't just zero in on this part of it or that part of it. I mean, there's a whole sense of how complicated it is, and I love that. I love that.
Absolutely. So many people know you from your coverage of trials, O.J. Simpson, Phil Spector, but this, of course, was going on during Phil Spector, the filming of you, but it took us back to your beginnings, and so much we learn about you, your relationship with your father and your brother. And what of the entire film do you think people will take away about you?
Well, I don't know how wonderful I am. No. The thing I take away, there's a piece of footage in this film that I had never seen before and that they found. And it is at the beach years ago when my little daughter, the love of my life, comes and crawls up to use my fanny as her pillow. And I just think that was so, I cried when I saw that. And, but you know, I have this complicated life in that I am a writer and I'm a journalist, and I was a movie producer, and so I've sort of been in all of it. But I finally found myself as a writer. I mean, I didn't write until I was 50 years old, and that started the most exciting part of my life.
And that came about through something that happened with your daughter, which is well documented, but you might just mention that.
Well, my daughter, the same sweet little girl who was in that shot I was just telling, was murdered. And I went to the trial of the man who murdered my who murdered my daughter. I'd never been to a trial before, and I was so horrified at what I saw, and I was so horrified at the way we, as the family of a victim, were treated in court. I just couldn't get over it. How the criminal, the killer, had more privileges than we had. And, you know, first I went through these nutty thoughts of hiring someone to kill him. And then I thought, wait a minute. I've got the talent to write about this. I've got the talent to go on TV and talk about this. And that has become the center of my life. I'm very active in victims' rights. Recently, President Bush had me to I'm not for Bush, but he had me speak at a candlelight vigil in Washington to the families of victims of crime. It's something that's very, very important to me.
So you prove that the pen is mightier than the sword, as trite as that may sound. It's
true, though. Yeah. It is true, because you reach I mean, I've just come from London, and last night, it stunned me. It stunned me how well, that they all knew who I was, and the fact that O.J. Simpson has, I was at that trial in Las Vegas just now.
I was going to bring that up. I'm glad you did. Mm-hmm.
But I also covered the murder trial 13 years ago when he was acquitted, and one of the most disgusting moments I've ever seen in a courtroom. And even in England, the people were saying to me, they got him finally. And I feel I had a little something to do with that. I mean, I wrote and wrote and wrote about that.
So that's true. You did cover the first O.J. Simpson trial 13 years ago, and then you covered the most recent one in Las Vegas. And that is not so much in the documentary because it just happened, and they filmed more with the Phil Spector. But what were some of your observations from being in the courtroom in Las Vegas?
Well, I'll tell you, I had a very interesting time in that I'm one of those people that gets to court early in the morning. And O.J. Simpson, I was nervous about seeing him after the way I'd written about him. And it turned out he was nervous about seeing me. And he was not a prisoner or anything. He was free. And he would get there early. And we began to talk back and forth. And there were things about him that I thought, God, this is kind of a nice guy. And then I'd remember, I said, don't forget what he did to his wife. And I'm one of the few people that saw the pictures of his wife's severed head. And it's something I will never, ever, ever forget. And I'm hoping to get back there on December 5th for the sentencing. I think he'll get life. And it's very odd that this is kind of a minor crime, but they're paying him back for that thing he got away with.
A lot of people have said, there's been even editorials written about the fact that it is a minor crime and that the punishment is not befitting of this crime, but of a different crime. And is that fair?
Well, is it fair? I don't know. But I'm not going to fight against it. I mean, anything. He's 61 now, and if he gets 20, that's a life sentence for him. It's over. His life's over. And I'm not concerned about whether it's fair for him or not. He's had a lot of years, and in the 13 years that he has had free, he's sort of flirted with danger the whole time. He's the drugs, and he's been arrested several times, you know, minor things. And it's like he didn't learn a lesson.
So, switching back to the subject of you, what is next for you? What's going on? Is you back in the movies after?
No, never back in the movies. That's over. And
the next Phil Spector trial?
I'm not going to do that either. And I'm finishing a novel. I want to get a memoir done. I love writing for Vanity Fair magazine. I was just doing something in London, doing a story for them in London. I'll keep working for Vanity Fair magazine. And, you know, I'm getting old now, and so I have to cut down my schedule somewhat, but not too much.
Not too much. You're here. You flew in from London. You helicoptered in from New York. Thank you so much for joining us. It is such an honor to have you.
Well, I thank you. I am delighted to be here at the film festival. I mean, this is really exciting for me. And that it's a movie about me. I mean, I'm really excited, and it's such a good one.
It really is. I enjoyed seeing it so much, and I learned so much more about you than I ever knew. It was just a remarkable gem of a film.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We're in the sunny Hamptons, nice and warm. It's beach weather.
Beautiful.
And I'm here with the director of the guitar, Amy Redford. Welcome to the Hamptons,
Thank
Amy.
you. Thank you.
And it's a great movie. This movie is terrific, from the way it was shot to the acting to it's an incredible movie. And it's It's here at the New York premiere. We have
The East Coast premiere,
East Coast premiere. And so just give a little thumbnail sketch of the plot so that we don't, if I do it, I might violate some rights.
Okay, no, that's okay. The Guitar is about a woman who's basically been living a kind of anemic, unexamined life, had been depriving herself of certain kinds of pleasures, sensual and otherwise, and as sort of been going through life like a ghost, and then she finds out that she's terminally ill and makes a choice that's different than any other choice that she's made, and it causes a chain reaction of awakening. And one of the things that she does is pursue an unrequited love affair that she's had since a child with a 1963 Fender Stratocaster. And
Bright red.
Bright red, gorgeous.
I think there are many people in the audience that still have that.
Yeah.
That
The one that we have is a reissue. Otherwise, you'd have to spend the entire budget on that one guitar.
You're not kidding.
But,
I tell you.
and she, and it causes her to have this kind of emotional and spiritual awakening. And she, surrounds herself with beautiful things, and kind of goes through a mythological journey to find out who she actually is and who she's meant to be. And it's got a very joyful story and filled with a lot of wonderful moments, between her and some of the other actors, and her and the guitar.
Well, let's talk about the actor that is the lead in this.
Saffron Burrows.
You might remember her from Boston Legal.
Yeah,
right?
she's in Boston Legal. She's right now in the TV show My Own Worst Enemy, and she was just in the Bank Job, the movie The Bank Job. Saffron is one of a kind. She's stunningly beautiful and smart and very hardworking.
And her face, she's like one of those actors that actually reacts instead of acts. It's amazing, and not giving anything away, but she has one of these days. If you think you had a bad day at home, she had a horrific day at home. It was
bad
unbelievable.
thing comes in 3s or 6s or 9s,
Well,
I guess. Yeah.
She was trumped to the max.
Yeah.
And as you go through it, you actually empathize with her, and it's remarkable. And it's something that, thinking back and as you go through the thing, you say, as a child, there are items that anchor us.
Yeah.
That, I guess, physical items. It might be a bicycle, it might be a baseball card,
sure.
it might be something that you desired and never got.
Yeah.
And her parents were wonderful parents, but that thing was not fulfilled.
Yeah.
And you could see that it's eating at her, and eventually she had to realize it.
That thing that you're talking about for all of us, it kind of becomes endowed with what you've deprived yourself of, and how you calcify into somebody that you don't recognize, and it became a metaphor. That guitar became a metaphor for everything, every choice that she's made that was done in fear, and so it's it really is. It's the guitar for one person could be getting up in the morning and writing a poem, or traveling the world, or and also the illness. Sometimes it's not about a literal disease, but it's about reaching a moment in life when you realize that you're like the Walking Dead. You're not inhabiting your life in the way that you could. And I think most of us have dealt with people that are sick, and for me to be able to give this character a joyful journey was a victory.
Perfect. The thing that got me was, throughout the movie, the idea of surrounding yourself with possessions. And oftentimes people say, well, if I get a car, that'll cheer me up.
Yeah.
If I buy a bigger home, that'll cheer me up. If I buy, lavish clothes, that'll make me happy, or jewelry, that'll do it. Yeah. And what you notice is that we fill ourselves with things, and as George Carlin used to say, you accumulate things and you get a house, and then it gets so small that you get a bigger house to put more things in it, and eventually...
And then you're buried.
Yeah, you're buried. That's it.
And your appetite for things is way more than you can handle,
And it kind of speaks to that issue, and this materialistic... There's an aspect that speaks to that.
I'm glad you picked up on that, because it really is about, we so often feel validated by the things that we possess. And she has to go through that journey. You know, I've certainly had those moments where I was white-knuckled, gripping onto something, you know, feeling like if I had that thing, then maybe I would be more valid as a person. And she actually ends up, by going through it, coming out the other side and, you know, connecting to her soul. And I think it also speaks to balance. I'm not condemning people for, you know, liking beautiful things, but I think if you deprive yourself and then indulge yourself, it's about, you know, I think trying to find a balance.
And also it speaks to a loneliness, because in tying yourself with the possessions and having no human comfort, it makes it even, it amplifies a loneliness, and it's dramatic. What brought this story to you?
A friend of mine knew what the story was inspired, the story that the script was inspired by, and she knew that I was at my own impasse, and she thought that I would be right for the lead role, and so she introduced me to Amos Poe, the screenwriter, and he and I started talking, and the more that I digested the script, and I've said this, that I kept firing myself in the lead role and hiring other actors in my head, and I kind of realized
that's very unusual.
Leave it to me, you know, to get fire myself out of a job. But I did realize that I wanted to tell the story. I didn't want to be in the story, and the idea of guiding an actress through this kind of a role was really exciting to me, because it doesn't happen that often.
No, and I think that it's certainly beautiful. It's a beautiful motion picture. I highly recommend it. The guitar, and this is your first time out to the East End?
No. I'm a native New Yorker, so I've come this way a couple of times
and
before.
And the Hamptons Film Festival?
I haven't been to the film festival, but
great. Know. Well, you just got here. I know that we're freezing you here.
No, it's beautiful.
I know the town here has turned on the air conditioning really high.
Yeah, that's okay. Listen, try to go to Utah in January. That's how you know.
Okay, so welcome to the festival.
Thank you.
Again, it's the guitar, the New York or East Coast premiere.
Yeah, we're open in at the Sunshine Theater in Manhattan on November 7th. So
and
come.